Hello. Welcome to this new video. This time we are going to continue with the CEH version 13 preparation exam, and we're going to cover module 16, which is hacking wireless networks. Now, I'm going to go through a quick overview of wireless networks and what I believe you need to know to do well in the exam in reference to that specific subject. But wireless in itself is a technology the same way that you have Ethernet and you have all these rules, configurations, it's the same thing with wireless. So I am passionate about wireless. I have worked on hundreds of wireless projects, small and large. I've done hundreds of configurations. And it's one of those things that I find fascinating because it varies most of the time. Each environment is different because it is immune to whatever is happening around it. So, with that being said, let me just give you a brief overview of things that I believe you need to know for the exam. Number one, Wi Fi, as we all know this, is just one of the many wireless technologies out there. I'm gonna bring over what you see here is spectrum analyzer. What this is doing is analyzing the 2.4 gigahertz band for just analyzing it, right? And when I analyze it, it's gonna show how busy it is. If you see red, it means that it's super busy. And if you see the other colors, it just shows the amount of wireless noise that is in the spectrum because that wireless noise is going to affect the signal. But if you need to analyze the traffic or capture Wi-Fi traffic, you need a specialized tool for that. And you need, number one, a tool that is going to be able to understand the Wi-Fi traffic. And number two, you need a specialized Wi-Fi adapter for that as well. In this case, I am using the Wi-Fi adapter that is built in my laptop, but that's not going to be able to capture the management frames that you need to understand for the Wi-Fi network. And the management frames is what people need to capture the IVs to hack into WPE encryption. But I just wanted to show you that and letting you know that you need a specialized set of tools. But what do you need to know for the exam? Let me go back here. Let me bring this document down here and we're going to be jumping back and forth. Number one, as I mentioned to you, this is this is what I have, what I create to teach. This is part of my teaching. So I'm giving you an insight into my own documentation. So, wireless networks allow devices to connect without cable using, and this is the key word, radio signals, right? And as I mentioned to you earlier, Wi Fi is just one of the many wireless technologies out there. We have Bluetooth, that is for short range, we have ZigBee and NFC for IoT and contactless. And then you also need to know the different standards for Wi-Fi. We have 802, 802.11ac. We have the 5 gigahertz, the 4 gigahertz band. Then we have N, and we have the previous one, B and A, but they don't mention those on the exams anymore. But those are technologies we used to have, and those are technologies that are supported by most wireless equipment for backwards compatibilities, even though it's not a good idea to implement them. What else do you need to know for the exam? The authentication, right? I'm not going to go deep into it because this is not a in-depth tutorial of how wireless or Wi-Fi works, but you need to know the differences between WEP, WPA, WPA2, and WPA3, which is the newest standard for wireless encryption. You may get questions as of you have a network device that is using WEP, and they're going to ask you what tools will you need to crack the password of things like that, right? So just make sure you understand that WEP is the weakest encryption mechanisms that can be used in a Wi-Fi network, and the strongest mechanisms is WPA3. PA3. And just to giving you a side note, perhaps not related to the exam, but for real life, you may have some devices that support WPA3, but it's not compatible with other devices, and then you're going to have an endpoint that is trying to connect to an access point that is using WPA3 and is not compatible. So just keep those things in mind. That has nothing to do with the exam, at least for this exam. But that's something that you have to keep in mind. When it comes to attacks, Wi-Fi is susceptible to many type of attacks because the signal travels over the air, and it's difficult to contain that signal within a range. So anybody could potentially sit close to the signal and try to capture the data that is traveling in the air. The good thing is that even if they're able to capture that data, if the data is encrypted, as we see here, they're not going to be able to do anything with it because it's going to be all gibberish, right? They're not going to be able to decrypt it unless they have the encryption key, and that's what you need to protect. But when it comes to attack, what do you need to know for the exam? A rogue access point. This is one of the most successful type of attacks that people create an access point, or even let's go to the next one, an evil twin, which is cloning the SSID. And they just can, anybody could potentially set up an access point or a wireless router. And when they name the SSID, they name it as whatever you're using here, right? So when a user connects, the user is going to see the SSID they know that they connect to every day, and they see it, they try to connect, they're going to be prompted to enter a username and password depending on the authentication that they're using, or at least they're going to be prompted to enter a password if it's password protected, and then the attacker is going to be able to capture those credentials or capture the password. So it's super simple to do this. There are many tools that you can use depending on your Wi-Fi solutions that you can detect evil twins and rogue access points and get notified if within the spectrum, within the air, or even within your network, if there's something that should not be authorized to be broadcast in that SSID, if it's doing that. So you need to know these terms. You need to know what they are, right? MAC address spoofing, faking a device identity. Then we have jamming, disrupting wireless signals. That is a type of denial of service, and there are devices that people use to jam the wireless signal, or you can create enough Wi-Fi traffic or enough wireless noise to disrupt the wireless signal. Something else that I want to bring up here that I have to let you know, when it comes to denial of service, you may have unintended denial of service issues in your network, meaning that it's not something that somebody is intentionally creating, but there are devices that may interfere with your Wi-Fi network, or even electrical devices, even devices that has nothing to do with Wi-Fi. They may have a faulty electrical outlet or electrical component that is causing interference. So those are one of the things that you have to keep in mind, and that's why you would need a solution like a spectrum analyzer to let's see, let me do the 5 gigahertz to analyze the spectrum and see if there's anything causing interference, because you may not even know that interference is happening in your Wi-Fi network. But again, let's concentrate on the CEH exam. Let's talk about tools, wireless packet sniffing tools. Wireshark is a network analyzer tool, but in this case, something that you have to keep in mind, and I'm not sure if they're going to cover this in the exam or not, but I'm going to let you know this when it comes to real life. Wireshark is a great tool, but you're not going to be able to capture management frames with Wireshark unless you use, as I mentioned before, the proper wireless interface and the proper, in this case, the proper software. You need to install the PCAP adapters the pickup drivers, I should say, for Wireshark to do that. So Wireshark by itself, you're gonna be if I run Wireshark right now, I'm gonna be able to capture some traffic, but that traffic is not gonna be able to help me get into the details of the wireless communication, right? Uh, a tool that has been around since forever, Kismet detects hidden networks and rogues SSIP. Now, the tools that they are referring to does not necessarily mean that are the only tools. I mean, these are tools like Kismet and AirDome captures handshakes for cracking. Um, these are tools that are open source, right? But you could pay for a commercial tool like I'm using here. I was using at one point Common View for Wi-Fi, and in this case, I'm using what is this IIS Insider, and I'm gonna be able to get some captures in there. So the tools that they're mentioning in the in that I'm mentioning here for you to know for the exam are tools that are open source, are good, but they're not the only ones. There are hundreds of tools out there that you can use to do the same thing, but they just like to stick with the tools that have been known since forever. Something that you have to really understand is promiscuous modes that captures all the traffic on a network segments. If you don't have that, if you don't have the adapter in promiscuous mode, you're not going to be able to see all the traffic, right? So make sure that you enable that. Now, in my case, when I'm using commercial tools, that does it automatically for me. If you are using the open source tools like Kismet, you have to manually go into the command line and set that interface into promiscuous modes. And you also have to understand what the difference is between promiscuous modes and monitor mode. And monitor mode is all the traffic, but not just connected. So make sure you understand that. When it comes to wireless cracking, WPA2, WPA3, WPA, you need a dictionary attack for that. So good luck with that. With WEP, this is, I'm going to say simpler nowadays because we have very powerful technology that you can use. And by powerful technology, I don't mean expensive. When it comes to the tools and the ability to capture WEP traffic now, is simpler to do it now than it was back then, but it's rare that you're gonna see a Wi-Fi network configured only with WEP. However, it's not impossible. I've done Wi-Fi assessments, Wi-Fi security assessments, and I've seen many networks still using WEP in production. And you may say, why would anybody do it? Well, it's one thing if you have to change the encryption on your home Wi-Fi router that is pretty simple to use. Maybe you have to change a couple of devices in your network or update the drivers. But when you're working in corporate, they may have legacy systems since forever, and they cannot upgrade the encryption without breaking a million things. So they accept the risk. Now, the fact that something is WEP enabled does not mean, or that it has WEP encryption, does not mean necessarily that that network is vulnerable. There are different layers of security. Yes, you can crack the password, but then you may not be able to do anything. There are different layers of security that can be added if a network must use WEP without compromising the organization. But just to let you know, again, they're not going to cover those things in the exam, but I'm telling you from experience how things are like. Wireless tools, yes, you do need to know Aircrack-ng, right? And know the basic syntax for that. Uh, Wi-Fi automate wireless attacks. Then we have cow patty WPA dictionary attack. You could do that too. Then we have firm Wi-Fi crackers. I haven't seen this tool being used in years, but I'm putting it here because it's one of those tools like Aircrack that they may want to still mention it. So just make sure you keep it in mind. And then we have Wi-Fi pumpkin and better cat powerful man in the middle attacks. This is one of the most successful ways to compromise a system is by performing man in the middles. Obviously, there are many different security best practices they can implement to prevent that, but it's still successful. Countermeasures for that: disable WPS, prevent brute force entry, use WPA2 and WPA3 when applicable, right? Make sure that you have them, make sure that you use strong passwords, make sure that you use MAC filtering, right? Limited protection. MACs can be spoofed. Rogue AP monitoring, right? In this case, when we're talking about all this, it's mostly what you could do with commercial Wi-Fi solutions, right? If you are like a small shop and you're using a home router, you're not going to be able to have access to a lot of these things. Another countermeasure that I always find it as completely useless, but they may ask you questions about it, is SSID hiding as minors obscurity. Security by obscurity is not real security. As you could see here, I'm just running a tool that I paid like $79 a couple of years ago, and I'm able to see all the hidden wireless networks, right? So if I can get that information, I see the MAC addresses in here, and if I wanted to, I could potentially try to exploit those things. So uh, but if you see that in the exam as an option, well, just understand the context. That may be one of your choices too. Segment wireless traffic, totally, right? Segment your traffic at the Wi-Fi network for best performance, and also at the network layer for security. When it comes to key terms, make sure you understand what an SSID is. That's the network name versus the B SSID, which is the MAC address of the AP. And APs can have multiple MAC addresses. So keep that in mind, perhaps not for this exam. You have to understand terms such as handshake, authentication process to join Wi-Fi, IP, enterprise level login, IV, initialization, vectors, encryption. This is only applicable to WEP. Make sure you keep that in mind. If you get a tricky question about like you want to capture IV for a WPA2 network, hey, that's one. Then we have WPS, simplified setup, but often vulnerable, and man in the middle attacks. So you're not going to get a lot of questions for Wi-Fi network in this exam. And even if you take the hands-on exam, you're not going to see a lot of questions when it comes to cracking a Wi-Fi network. What you may get though, and that is on the practical exam, what you may get, they may give you files and expect you to use different tools to crack the passwords, right? So you may get that, but those are simple things. So those are the topics that I believe are important for you to know for the CEH exam when it comes to Wi-Fi networks. So if you found this information useful, again, all I ask you is to click on the like button, consider subscribing to the channel, and if you have it in you, why don't you leave a nice comments in the comment sections, because that helps with the YouTube algorithm. Thanks for watching. Good luck in your exam, and I'll talk to you on the next video.